All right, we got a trans kid story. You know I had to talk about it. Okay, before we actually get started, I'm going to tell you guys this is one of those that nobody is going to be happy with me if I really talk the way that I talk and say the things that I feel. So I'm just going to talk the way that I talk, say things the way I feel. If you have a difference of opinion, express it down below in the comment section. I'm not pretending to know everything, but I do feel like in some ways I'm uniquely qualified to talk about a lot of what's going on in this particular subject. So please go ahead and hit the like button, even if you don't like what I'm saying. I put effort into making this video. I actually read the article more than once. So if you could do me a favor and like the video, that helps me out more than you know. YouTube actually does care about that. Let's get started. What's up, everybody? Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, so I saw this story on AZ Family page while I was scrolling and trolling through Facebook, and I figured I would share it with you guys because I went ahead and read it, and at first I was emotional just like everybody else that was reading it. But then I looked at it with a little bit more of an arbitrary eye, and I saw what was going on, and really, we'll get to it. But here's the headline that I read. It said, "Trans kids are normal. Family heads to court after state rejects son's name change." All right, I'm going to tell you guys the story, and then I'm going to tell you guys what I think the headline really should read. Because what this is doing to me is just setting people up to argue. It's basically clickbait, in my opinion. Because what happened was, there's a family, they have an 8-year-old child. Their child identifies as a boy, was born a girl. When the child was born, obviously they gave it a girl's name. And then now, since the child identifies as a boy, the child decided at 7 years old that he didn't feel like a girl, and so he wanted to identify as a boy. Now, the reason I feel uniquely qualified to discuss this is because when I talk about this, I feel like I have a little more insight than the average person, just because, and I've talked about this before, if you're new to this channel, if you're new to me in general, what you should know about me is I'm obviously a gay man. And I've talked about this before, but when I was younger, I thought that I was trans. I didn't know what trans was, but I thought that I was meant to be a girl. And that's only because when I was very young, probably around 4 years old, my older sister told me that if you didn't like girls and you were a boy, then you must be a girl. And if you didn't like boys and you were a girl, then you must be a boy. And I was a kid and I was impressionable, and I knew already, even though that I was young, I knew that I liked boys. And so I felt like, oh my God, that means that I must be a girl. But back in those days, you didn't dare tell your parents that. And I'm Mexican, even though I know I look Asian, but I am Mexican, and you really didn't tell your parents that. So I just kept it to myself. So from around 4 until 13, I felt like eventually I was going to need to be a girl. And so when people talk about these stories and they're like, what if the kid grows up and decides that they don't want to be a boy? Well, here's the deal with this situation. A lot of people are talking like they're actually trying to change this child's gender. And I'll also educate you guys on what this is, just because I know some people aren't the most familiar with the verbiage. This boy, like I said, was born a girl, and so that's commonly referred to as a trans man, or in this case, a trans boy. And so, born a female, now lives as a male. And the parents are fully supportive of it, which is something I'm supportive of. When it comes to parents and these kinds of things, what I would really say, even though I know I don't have kids and some people are going to come down on me for that, but what I would really say is to let your child go through this like they go through any other phase, and be as supportive as you would with anything else. In this particular case, the parents, I don't feel like, or I didn't feel from reading the article, that the parents were particularly unhealthy about it, just maybe overprotective of their kid, which is natural. I mean, I have nephews and nieces, and I'm very protective of them, and I want them to be able to live life the way that they want to live it. None of them are going through anything like this, so I can't say I identify exactly, and I'm not their parent, like I said, so I don't 100% relate, but at the same time, I get what it is they're saying. But what happened was, this kid has been living as a boy. He plays baseball, he has friends, everybody's cool with him, his coaches address him in his boy name. He's living his best life as a little boy. So at one point, his mother suggested to him, because she noticed that when they went to like the doctor's office or things like that, they had to use his legal name, which is obviously a girl's name. And so the mom noticed that he would get like uncomfortable when they would use the girl name. And the mom asked him if he wanted to change his name legally to the boy name, the name that they were calling him by in the article, even though it's not his name, is Trevor. And they called him Trevor just to protect his identity, didn't actually use the name that he actually uses. So they referred to him as Trevor, so we'll be referring to him as Trevor. So the mom goes to Trevor and says, hey, do you want to change your name legally? And Trevor at first expressed no interest in that. He was like, bitch, don't bother me. I'm doing shit. Probably playing baseball. Who knows? Trucks. I know what being a boy is like in that way, or at least pretending to be like one. Pretending to be one, I know what that's like, because that's what I was doing when I was little like that, because I thought in my head I was a girl. But I also know what it's like to play Barbies. My parents were somewhat cool. Anyway, so the thing was, the mom goes to him, asks him if he wants to change his name. He shows no interest. So then later on, he's coming up to his 8th birthday, and he says to his mom, hey, can we go ahead and change my name after all? And can I still get other presents? This is according to the article. And so the mom is like, okay, so let's change the name. So they end up finding out through a friend of theirs that they could possibly use this way of doing it where it's the name correction, and it's just a quick 20-minute process where you go in, you tell them you need to correct the name, and they correct the name. Well, apparently that didn't apply to them, because the person that they dealt with at their local courthouse or whatever that was let them know that that's not actually the way that it works. Like, the name correction is something different from trying to change your identity. And so, of course, the parents saw that as some sort of discrimination, which I really don't see as a discrimination, because everybody I know that's had to go through a name change, because I do have plenty of trans friends that have had their names legally changed, has to go through a different process than that. So the office that they go to tells them that, hey, it doesn't work this way. And so then the dad gets mad, and he's like, well, I need more of an explanation. And he was like, this seems like discrimination to me. And the court was like, slow down, Karen. That's not the way this is working right now. This isn't about discrimination. This is about you're not trying to do a name correction. You're trying to do a full-on name change, which this is more meant for if a person's name was Jane and they meant that it was supposed to be Joan, or Sandy and it was supposed to be Cindy. And this was all happening in St. Louis, Missouri, so I can understand how there might be a couple spelling errors. No offense, St. Louis, but you know. So what happened is the dad gets upset about that, and then he asks them for more of an explanation. He says the explanation doesn't make sense, which to me, just as far as that goes, when we were doing correction rather than name change, and the process is called a correction, and the dad's saying that it's a mistake, and it's like, yeah, but it's your mistake. Like, and I don't even know that it's a mistake. Like, you thought your child was going to identify and live as a female, so you gave your child a female's name, and then that turned out not to be the deal, and it's a different process. If you've ever dealt with any kind of name change or dealt with friends that have name changes, then you definitely know it's not about that. It's about, there's a process where you have to put your name in the paper for a little while. I think it's like 3 weeks you have to put your name in the paper once a week, so that if there's any creditors that are after you or anything like that, then they have full notice. In this case, it's a minor, so both of the parents have to agree. Both of the parents are fully on board. And so it's like the different process. And so they told them that it's a different process, and the dad still isn't having that. So he went to the St. Louis Gay Center or LGBT Center. And then, of course, once you get activists involved, the activists don't think with any real common sense, to tell you the truth. Activists are the most unhelpful people in the world, because they're 100% emotion. Like, one of the activists that was talking in this particular story was like, could you imagine a stranger deciding you can't have what you want for your birthday? And I mean, come on, stop being stupid. The kid isn't thinking that deep about it. And really, I know a lot of people said the parents are putting them up to this. I don't think the parents put them up to being a boy, but I do think the mom shouldn't have dropped the suggestion in the kid's head that they could possibly change the name legally, because most kids don't worry about that. Like, with me, I have no connection with any name. Ty Rivera that name, okay, cool. I've been called that for a long time, so I have a connection with that name. But when I was a kid, I had 4 or 5 different names that people would call me by, and none of them were my actual name on my birth certificate. That's just the way I lived. So that's another way I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to talk about this, because I never thought about my birth certificate or can we change my birth certificates. I didn't even know that was an option when I was a kid, you know? So my thing was, and I did one time get my sister in trouble, or try to get her in trouble, because she was calling me by a nickname that I didn't like, and I wasn't used to them calling me at home. There was more of a school nickname, and my mom was like, so that's your name, shut up. And so that's the way that got handled, and then we never had that conversation again. So to me, the mom shouldn't have put it in the kid's head in the first place, because the kid wouldn't have worried about the birth certificate. The mom could have just been like, look, they're going to call you this name until we have your name legally changed. And then when it comes to the dad was saying that, you know, now Trevor's birthday plans are being put on hold. Well, that seems awfully dramatic of you, because Trevor wanted to wear a suit that he likes to wear for his birthday and come out with his birth certificate framed. And it's like, an 8-year-old is thinking of all these ideas. No, this is you and the mother that wanted him to have this particular ceremony for his birthday. And get over it. It didn't happen that way. And you don't put the kid's birthday on hold. You don't make the kid think this is that big of a deal. What you do is you tell the kid, like, let this be a lesson to you in what bullshit it is dealing with the government, dealing with anything state related. This is the kind of bullshit you're going to deal with, Trevor. Expect that this is going to be your life. Anytime you have to deal with anything to do with courts, it's going to be a fucking money hustle, because that's what it comes down to. Because this is like a $20 process, I think they said it was, for, you know, the correction. But if you get the full name change, that's like a $300 process. And I can tell you, like I said, because I had friends that went through that, I think it was like $300 and some dollars that they had to pay. So obviously they want to make more money off of that. And then there's different ways that, like, because it has to go to Third Circuit, I think it said, like Third Circuit Court, Superior Court. And so then a judge also has to make sure that this is in the child's best interest, which to me, that seems kind of annoying. But at the same time, go to that same LGBT center, pick out one of the counselors there, one of the ones that's actually got an accredited degree. I'm sure there's one. There's always one that works with the LGBT centers. I've been into enough LGBT centers to know that you can find somebody that's got doctor in their title, not the one with the blue hair. That's not going to be a credible one as far as the courts go. You find the one that looks the most prim and proper, probably a lesbian, lipstick side, if you can make that happen. And you go ahead and have her come in and testify that this is the best for the child's well-being. And then the judge is most likely going to be like, okay, well, let's do that, because nobody wants to deal with this heat and these problems. And the father was saying that there's been a lot of anti-trans legislation that's been introduced in Missouri right now, so he thinks that's why it is. No, that's not why it is. He also said that different people, and even Channel 4, which was the network that actually did this story on their news in Missouri, so look that up if you want to find out exactly what channel it was on, or, like, you know, what the station identification is. I don't know. I'm not a reporter. I don't have that information. I'm not privy to that information. I didn't want to Google it. But Channel 4 said that they were actually able to find people that had used the name correction process to change a name completely. And I believe that that's possible, because, you know, you pay somebody $15 and throw some bennies at them, and suddenly they're like, all right, well, let me just stamp this real quick and make this happen. And then one day their manager comes in and, like, you dummy, you're not supposed to be changing names like that. That's a more expensive process. You're letting these people get by with only paying this measly $20. We could be making $300 off of this. And then the whole thing changes. I really don't think it has to do with anti-trans in this situation. I really do feel like it has to do with them not taking the proper channels to actually do this name change the way that they want to do it. And what they should have done was, like I said, go ahead and have the birthday party anyway. Tell the kid, like, this is the way that it works sometimes, and every once in a while you're going to deal with some extra BS because that's the way the system works, but we're going to get everything done. Don't worry about it. You will be Trevor. And for the people that are worried that maybe Trevor will decide when he gets older that he doesn't want to be a boy, that he actually wants to be a girl, well, let Trevor decide that, and then he can just be a girl named Trevor. Maybe he'll like that name and form such a connection with it that he won't care and won't want to change his name back. I am personally against having major surgeries done to kids or even giving them hormone blockers and stuff like that, but that's a completely different story, and that's not what we're talking about right now. I do think that you should let your kid live in whatever identity that they want to live in. And some people get like, well, when I was a kid, I thought I was going to be a horse. Well, you probably grew up to look like one, so you're half right. I mean, like, it's always the warthogs that care about these things so much. And I noticed a lot of dogs with a lot of strong opinions on Facebook yesterday, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. I mean actual pictures of dogs being like, this is ridiculous. Well, what's ridiculous is your profile picture as a dog. So how about you look like the person you are, which is probably not too far off the mark anyway. But I need to stop insulting people, because really what I'm trying to say is this should not be that big of a deal. It really shouldn't be, you know. And the activist was saying, well, then they have to go to court, and that could be triggering for a child. Why? Kids don't think anything about court. They're just in an office. Like, has the kid had warrants? Like, I don't understand. And then the activist was saying that this is what trans people have to go through to change their names. No, there just happen to be more trans people that want to change their names than regular cisgender people. So that's just part of the process. But anybody that wants to change their name has to go through this same process. It's the way it works. If I wanted to change my name to any, even if it was another male name, I would still have to go through that same process. And then the dad closed out the article by saying he just wants to live his life and be left alone and be called by the name he's chosen for himself. Well, it looks like he's already doing that before your stupid wife got in his head and told him that he should change his name legally and made that a thing for him. I'm sure he wasn't thinking about that before your wife brought it up. So your problem, sir, is with your wife, and you need to go to your wife and say, look, stop putting stupid shit in his head. Or you can let your wife continue to put stupid shit in his head and be like, okay, we're going to take the proper legal channels to get what we want done. And then if they don't give you the name change, then you go to the activists, then you go to the news, then you do all the stuff that you're supposed to do. So instead of this article or this headline reading, trans kids are normal, family heads to court after state rejects son's name change, what the headline to this article really should say is, trans kids are normal. Family chooses to take proper channels after originally having taken the incorrect steps for son's name change. But then it wouldn't be a story. Then people wouldn't click on it. Then it wouldn't have even had me talking about it, because I probably wouldn't have heard about it. They just would have done what they were supposed to do, and this would be what it is. Anyway, I hope that kind of explains it to you guys and where I'm at with it. I don't feel like I know everything, so if you guys have different feelings, go ahead and express them down in the comments. If you're one of those people that wants to be like, this is a girl, that's a little girl, and do that. But I don't really care what you have to say, because there's a good chance you're old and you're on your way to dying anyway, because it's just such old school thinking now to really, and to act like kids completely don't know is also very annoying to me, because the thing is, you guys knew. If you admit it, if you're grown up enough to admit it, if you're adult enough to admit it and actually accept that that does have some weight to it, that when you were a kid, maybe you did think you were going to grow up to be a horse or want to grow up to be a horse, but you knew that you were going to be a female horse or a male horse or whatever it was you were assigned at birth. You probably knew that you were that. So just as sure as you knew that, maybe this little boy knows that he's actually meant to be a boy. And I know people are going to continue to fight that because people don't like trans, but eventually that's just going to be another thing in the world, and we're all going to accept it the way that we really should, because when it comes down to it, does it really affect your life? Is it something that really matters to you? And for the people that are like, this is child abuse, no, child abuse is beating your kid. That's what child abuse is. So maybe you don't like the way these people are raising their kids, but maybe if somebody peeked in your windows when you were raising kids, or if you have kids now, they would be like, yeah, I don't like the way you raise your kids either. To me, that's child abuse. Kraft macaroni and cheese, ugh, that's child abuse in my opinion. But anyway, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.